Okay, I'm back in the big comfy chair to read a second excerpt from The Perfect Score. And this time, it is from her point of view, a little bit further in the story in chapter 5. Jack caught her hand when she turned away. "Forgive my overbearing nature." Shelley pursed her lips together, refusing to speak. Jack exhaled a loud sigh. "I'm glad Anna confided in you. She and I don't talk much anymore. Things haven't been the same since the funeral." He paused, swallowed hard, and stared off into the distance. "I don't know how to change them, and this is the first time I'm asking for help." He dropped her hand and shoved his hands into his pockets once more. Shelley ground her teeth together to steel herself from his emotions. She figured she was the first woman either of them had opened up to after the death of Anne-Marie, and she didn't know how she felt being in this position. What had made her special? "Anna told me in confidence," Shelley began, "and I am going to trust you'll keep it to yourself until she feels comfortable to speak with you. I did tell her that since she's under 18, legally, I can't keep anything from you." He nodded, his voice hoarse when he spoke. "Thank you." Shelley straightened her spine and held up a hand. "I need you to listen without interruption." She waited until he nodded in agreement again, then continued. "Anna doesn't want to go senior. She and I agreed she could train with me and we'd pick the competitions she does want to compete at. In return, she will train to her utmost potential and not cause problems in the gym." He blinked in surprise. "That's it?" "Yes." "But," he protested, "this is her last shot for senior." He paced the length of the steps before sitting heavily on the edge of the top step opposite her. He hung his head, slowly shaking it back and forth. "Jack, adult to adult, it appears you want this more than she does. In my professional opinion and as your daughter's coach, I ask you to think about that." Jack cocked his head to look at her. "But she can do so much more." Shelley dropped her bag onto the porch and folded her arms over her chest. "She does want more. She wants to be able to attend school dances, date." "Date?" His eyes nearly popped out of his head. Shelley plopped down beside him and took his hand in hers. "Anna's 16, she pointed out. "I'm sure by that age you'd had your first date. She wants the best of both worlds. There's nothing wrong with having balance in her life. She doesn't have to be the best." He raked his fingers over his head in agitation. "I can't believe she's giving up on her dream, and you're letting her." "Letting her?" Incredulous at his stubborn attitude, she dropped his hand. "It's her choice. I'm helping her get what she wants." More silence on his part, and she wanted to shake some sense into him. "Jack, there are a lot of girls who are going senior this year, and only a few will make it. Anna is aware of how hard she would have to work and the kind of things she'll have to give up to be there. At the risk of offending you, I'd say she's being more practical than you are." Shelley watched Jack open and close his mouth several times before he found words. "I just don't want her to have any regrets later in life. What if one day she feels bad she didn't try? It'll be too late. She's in grade 11. This is her last chance." "She's not Anne-Marie," Shelley blurted out. Stunned into silence, Jack stared at her wide-eyed. Shelley inwardly cursed herself for her outburst. "I apologize," she began. "That was a harsh thing to say." "It's weird, being on the receiving end of such a tactic," he admitted. She patted his back. "At the risk of being armchair psychologist, I'd say you feel some sense of guilt that Anne-Marie gave up the ballet to be your wife and Anna's mother, but I bet if you could ask her, she'd say she had no regrets whatsoever." Jack hung his head. "I always made sure she had everything she ever wanted. I knew what she'd given up, and I wanted to be worthy." "Who says you weren't? Why didn't the two of you ever have this conversation?" He shrugged. "I don't know. We were happy. It's all that mattered. Nagging insecurities never really came up to talk about." "Seems to me," Shelley said. Anne Marie traded in her dream for a new one. She loved you and the family you'd created together. People are allowed to change their dreams. And I bet she'd tell you that she lived out hers. His Adam's apple moved when he swallowed hard, his voice thick when he spoke. I truly hope so. On instinct, she took his hands in hers. When I was little, I wanted to compete in the Olympics, but as I got older, I realized I wouldn't make it. Instead of being discouraged, I changed my vision. I wanted to be able to compete, and later I wanted to become a coach. At university, I studied human movement, and I chose to be a part of the sport in a different way. Anna is growing up and making choices for herself. You should be proud. You have a daughter who feels confident to do that for herself.